I'm still fixing my hair. I just got done at the gym, so.
All right, everybody. This is Adam Atkinson here with Casey Samsel, and this is the Wine Now, Sweat Later podcast.
Yeah, that one. Sometimes we say it backwards, but that's the way you're supposed to say it.
Yes.
We got it.
And today I'm drinking just some very cheap stuff that my wife had in the cabinet. I prefer red wines, but this is a Pinot. And then you're drinking, it looked like a white as well when we were chit-chatting.
Yeah, trying to slowly recover from the weekend, so.
Uh-oh.
I had a good weekend.
A party animal?
Yeah, it was Sunday fun day, and it lasted a little bit longer than I had planned.
You know, that's one thing I always enjoyed engaging in conversation in when we were working together is your family really came first with you. And that was something I understood as a coach, that, Casey has some events coming up and some time with family. And, one thing, you never BS the occasions. They were always really big things. They were holidays and stuff like that. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to save my refeed for this day. It's not essentially going to be a refeed, but also with your body type, that worked really well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I mean, you were there firsthand, so you've seen the whole thing. But yeah, I think being a competitor that you could, once you get to a certain point, then you can actually use those types of things for, to do a refeed with or whatever it was,
I feel like you can almost intuitively eat yourself into a refeed, and keep yourself in check.
Yeah.
And just adjust from there.
Yeah. So actually that's that's a really great topic that we could talk about today is reverse dieting.
Yeah. Let's definitely cover that.
It's close to my heart. I'm I'm all about it. That's my thing. I make sure that I ever since my first show, I always just reverse dieted, to the best of my abilities and my knowledge. And, and then after meeting you and working with you, it was just the whole experience was enhanced, and reverse dieting was the new thing. It was it was what made your prep, and it made you a good athlete. I'm telling you, the off-season part of it is what really makes the changes.
Yeah, it really does. Did you want to talk about hardness and softness on stage first? We kind of got cut off in our last podcast. It was the first one I had ever filmed in person with somebody. But now we can kind of continue that. And we're tech, we should have a smooth process today.
We're going to make it to the end. I know we will. Everybody's going to see it. We're going to show it off. And when the wine finally gets buzzing, that's when it gets good. And that's when it got cut off.
Yes.
No, I know we were talking about just that overall look of the stage, hair, makeup, suit, even down to stones, posing, things like that, and hair color, all that stuff. So I think touching on the idea of the actual physical being, just retouching on it again is definitely a good idea.
Yeah.
And I think what we were trying to get at was a certain hardness and a certain softness on a certain type of athlete is better. So it's for me, we said that I come in a little bit more fuller, I look a little bit better, and I do better.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then there's some athletes that you really got to reel in and bring in and just lean them out, and then so they even need a really soft carb load even, you know what I mean? To actually just pop a little bit on stage, and that's all they need. So, there's so many different things that, different athletes need.
I think a big thing can be height with an athlete. If you fill out someone that's short, that can maybe present not as slender of a bikini physique, which can be difficult to, deal with depending on who all is on stage. But a lot of those girls that are in the Class A or, some of them are coming in at, anywhere as high as 110 pounds, probably some of them down to the mid 80s, a little bit can go a long way. And that can definitely make a big difference. And, sometimes you never really know until you see an athlete in that class.
Right.
And that's the
And
difficult
on
part.
stage. Like you have to see them
Absolutely.
on stage.
That's the most difficult thing about what we do. And that could work one show and not another. You know,
Yeah, totally agree. How about this experience? Have you ever, had a girl in just a state level show, takes first, gets the feedback to be tighter, a little bit more conditioned, more leaner, and then they'll like give like specific pounds, like 5 or 6 pounds, you know what I mean? Which is a lot for, a smaller person. It's even a lot for me, actually. If you want me to come back down in like another 5 or 6 pounds, it's a lot. But then you get them to the national stage and, you accomplish all those goals and they're shredded, they're full, they're tight, they're good, they're ready to go. And then they don't do as well. And then,
absolutely.
or they win, but then they get to the pro stage and they're too hard and they don't win.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's crazy. Like the difference, in the levels of competition too.
You're only as good as who you're compared against. And
Exactly.
I think what's so cool about your journey, you've been compared against the best, and a pretty different lineup in terms of physiques. The Olympia is. I think that's what's cool about the Olympia. You see everyone join, but the whole season you see certain people going to different shows. Comparing
Right.
Salt Lake to, I think it was the Louisville Pro, were completely different looks. Those girls at Salt Lake were massive. That's where like Ashley Kaltwasser went. And then you had
Yeah.
Jessie down in Louisville Pro, which I believe she won that one. But it definitely makes a big difference where you show up. And then the Olympia just ends up being a joinment of everybody. And I believe
Right.
Anna was down in Louisville. I think she was like maybe third or fourth. Hannah Franz is,
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce her full last name, but she's killing it this year.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why the bikini division is labeled so subjective, because you see, you'll see some of the athletes, they'll compete and they'll win the shows, they get their points, they sit down, and then all of a sudden, then you start getting all these different types of body types like coming in, and you don't, trying to base your physique off of that isn't going to get you where you need to go.
Yeah,
Because Hannah looks nothing like Angelica. Jessie looks, nothing like Janet. You know what I mean? It's just everything is so different.
yeah,
So it is about it's about bringing the best that you've got with what you can make of it. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
I've been really lean, like, veiny, and I've seen like striations in my glutes and everything. And then I've also been, in places where I was a little bit uncomfortable because I was so full. And then I ended up winning those shows. That's what I won my pro card and the San Antonio Pro. Was both those times I felt too full. I felt very full.
Yeah,
So
I was just going to say, you found that sweet spot where a little fuller and a little less lean seems to work very well for you.
yeah, and I'm assuming that is because, I know that's what it is. It's because I'm just a little bit more slender. I've got to have those a little bit extra pump to work those angles to give myself a little bit more of that character up on stage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you drink a lot of water for more fullness for you? Because
Sometimes I have to drink more than I'm comfortable with. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So, and it's actually a really weird line. Like I'll usually have like maybe 20 ounces before the stage, which is a good amount for me because the day before I have all of my water, which is
right.
close to like 200 ounces. So I'll just sip, with all my meals just to get the carbs processed and stuff like that. Or, if I'm really, really dry. Um, and then, I'll find like before the stage, like I didn't fill out as well as I wanted to. So after prejudging, I'll keep chugging the water, and I'll show up back to finals nice and full and round and pumped up and looking good. And I don't know if that's ever worked for me, in regards to my placements, but I mean that, again, uncomfortably full.
Yeah, that's one thing that's different about coaching pro athletes versus amateurs is that you guys will get judged, especially if you're in that first lineup of the pros. The confirmation round really is just that. You still want to show up on your A game because they
Yeah.
really are going to confirm those scores and give it a second fresh set of eyes to see who they want.
Right. Yeah, and I mean they do that like on the national level and state levels once in a while when the points are very close.
Hmm.
Especially like we said before, when you've got two girls that they both have like that look and that charisma. Their posing's great. They're beautiful. Their suit and their hair and everything all looks great. You know, so they're gonna bring those types of people back out.
Yeah,
Just because they want to see more of them. They want to pick a real winner. You know.
there was a lot of that at juniors this year, which was
Yeah.
exciting to see. I want to say
Yeah.
almost every class they brought the
Yep.
top two back out.
Yeah.
Very cool to see. Very
Yeah.
intense.
Were you able to pick the winner after you seen the two come out?
You know, I was, and
Yeah.
in the three instances I saw that, it was pretty easy for me. And
Yeah.
a lot of times I have to turn blinders on a little bit and just keep telling myself overall package, because I'll always be a conditioning guy. I always like
Yeah.
leanness. I really do. And
Mm.
sometimes I've even had to get uncomfortable with where I take my clients for them to place well. I think as coaches, we all have things we like to do, but that still doesn't mean we always do them.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you there too, because as a coach, you want to, like, the overall package is definitely your goal, but you also want to highlight the best of the athlete.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's hard to, you know, try to take that highlight and then also 100% everything else, but there's that it factor that comes along with some of these girls too.
yeah.
You know, that we have nothing a part of. We can just help emphasize that and enhance that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot of people, when they're just standing backstage, I can almost tell as long as they pose good, it's going to be money. Um,
Yeah.
First instance I ever saw this was Ashley Janelle at North Americans. That girl was
Yeah.
standing around, and she looked incredible. And
Right.
I had no idea how she was going to pose. I just knew that when she hit the stage, she was probably going to be an overall winner. And she literally posed like nothing I've ever seen. She's got a totally different posing style that works for a few of my girls. I've had a few of my girls work with her. But what
Yeah.
Ashley does on stage is very, like, I dare say, a little more aggressive than a lot of
A
other.
little edgy. Yeah.
It is. It's not
Yeah.
quite like India, but it's
Right.
in between. And
Yeah.
she just rocked it, and I was like, she's winning the overall. There's no
I
doubt.
remember that year she was wearing a teal suit, her teal
Yep.
suit.
Yeah.
Yep. And I actually remember seeing her too, and I was like, those delts. I was like, they were incredible. They were perfect for her body. That her tie-ins were absolutely perfect, and she still carries that look with her today. Like, it hasn't changed. You
Right.
know, we all just mature a little bit, but like her look hasn't changed. She's just gotten better. Like, just having that overall package too. She's changed her suit, I think, a couple
Yeah.
times, and it still played off really, really well for her. She just won this past weekend, I believe, at the Optimum Classic for the second year in a row.
I think you're right.
So yeah. So she's got something going on for her. So when you saw her back there, you had something, light bulb go off for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And the thing is too, like, she's really tall, really, really tall.
Yes.
And she has that hardness to her because she has that muscle density and that fullness to her muscle, but she always comes in full, so her muscles are smooth still. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, they're just like, she has like that's just like the ideal like look that you're looking for when you're looking at legs. You don't want to see the division, you don't want to see the graininess, you don't want to see the dryness. You want to see that full muscle, but you don't want to see any lines in it, and you want that nice smooth finish to the top of the skin too. You
Yes.
know?
Yeah, not
Yeah.
too
So
grainy bodybuilder-ish of a leanness.
right. Yeah, and I mean, I see a lot of bikini girls actually bring that to the stage too, and sometimes they do well, but it's like, it's like that one time and they've got to make their tweaks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of like who shows up.
Yes, definitely.
But like I said, for me, I've always just been that one that just struggles to hold on to muscle and to make the muscle, and so I think that me coming a little bit fuller and uncomfortable has always worked for me.
I
But
think so too.
when you're a little bit more compact, sometimes you've got to shrink wrap yourself,
And
basically.
conditioning's never really been an issue for you. You know, you were always willing to put in the work and able to come in conditioned each time. So I
Trying
think
my best, yeah.
getting there first is key, where I think a lot of girls will just kind of stop dieting where they probably need 4 more weeks and then they can chase food intake up. You know,
Right.
unless they're an ectomorph, you can usually stop right where you think you're going to be okay. You'll probably even drop some body fat as you increase food. But yeah, a lot of people almost stop too early because they're like, I don't want to be too hard. And I think that's a very small amount of people that fall into that body type, you know.
Right. Yeah, and I mean it really kind of bets on how your muscle even sits on your body too, you know. Like I've got, you know, if I don't fill out and I don't eat, like I automatically just get pointy shoulders, like they're just little squares. You know what I mean? And that's the last thing you want on stage. So
Right.
hence the reason I'm back there doing a full shoulder workout 10 minutes before I go on. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that the idea is to always attempt and always give your best effort to reverse into a show, you know, so that you have, you know, you can bring yourself, you can get as lean as you possibly want. I wouldn't stop. I would get as lean as you know, you can, and then begin to reverse yourself. That's ideally, I think, what is it's going to leave you sustainable for the rest of the year, to be able to compete and eat more,
Hmm.
instead of like putting your metabolism and everything to a halt and risk all that stuff. And especially like the mental, you know, you don't want to kind of mess yourself up there either.
Yeah,
So we get inside our
absolutely.
heads really quick, really easy.
Yeah. I think too, a lot of people want to celebrate post show. And if you're not reversing, that becomes a very slippery slope. And,
Oh,
you know, I hate nothing more than telling a client not to celebrate after a show. But
yeah,
unless you're reversing in, you typically shouldn't, because
right.
you're going to spend a week or two taking that celebration off. And
Mhm.
it's honestly a game of just wait a week or two and then
Yeah,
you can start reversing. And I feel like some people just aren't patient enough to find this amazing thing of reversing into a show.
yeah. And I always want, and two, even after a show, like you mentioned with the post show food, you know, ideally you should, you know, a perfect peak week is not a peak week at all.
Right.
You know, it's almost as if you're just getting more food going into the show so you can just fill out your muscles, and that's basically what it is. And the water will naturally drop off with less stress and things like that. So um I think I've talked to you before about how like I prefer the non-peak week approach, you know, ideally non-peak week,
Yeah.
kind of like I just explained. And they're just small tweaks, no drama for the body or anything like that. And that's why I think like reversing out of the show is so important too. So you can get back to living your life with, you know, no drama with the food, no ups and downs, no mental battles or anything like that. So, I mean, for me, and I'm sure like my clients and your clients, we're all, you know, we're all the same in that aspect. Like we want to get back to like our lives as much as possible, you know, afterwards, to be able to celebrate, take those weekends back, take those holidays back and things like that. But there is definitely a method and madness to reversing and getting there. And so you can do it properly and do it healthy too. You know what I mean? Your body is going to thank you for it, and it's going to work for you rather than against you.
Absolutely. I know that's something me and you are huge on even after the show, is making sure our clients reverse up. On my peak week protocols, my clients, once they get their show day food at the bottom, there's a section for macros. And then the next time I want them to check in. And that is huge for not only a competitor's mental state, but also just their success in the business down the road. I've seen so many girls not reverse diet and they're basically repeating the same prep they had over again, which is painful to watch.
Right. Their bodies can't advance because they're always picking up the pieces.
Yeah.
So you can only get better by being better, and you can only, you know, make change by being the change, you know?
Yeah.
So I came to terms with that really quickly when I realized that you know, when I was teaching myself how to reverse before I had even met you, and I was trying to, you know, I don't even think the term was reverse at that point. I think it was just kind of like, just add more food back into your life, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and it was just, you know, you just kind of ate more of what you were eating during your prep. Um, until I got introduced to flexible dieting. But that's another thing we have to talk about too, how the bro diet's coming back around.
Yeah.
Not that it's a bad thing, it's interesting.
It
But
is.
so but I think crap, where was I with that? So the reverse dieting. Oh, okay. So bringing your body back to a level where it, like I said, wants to work for you and not against you, is about not only digestion. Like, people don't understand that it's not only about like digestion and your mental ability to be able to want to do it, but it's about your hormones too. Like, people don't realize your hormones are directly affected by that stuff. Like your insulin, first and foremost. Like, your insulin's most sensitive, 1 to 2 weeks after a show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Typically, for most people it is, unless there's like an underlying health issue, but yes.
Yeah. So it's just, I think that people need to understand how like valuable reverse dieting is, and how like quickly you can get back to your life and, enjoying the weekends and going out on dates and things like that. And you can even, and it's so crazy because I remember all of 2016, I was competing like back to back to back to back. And I would, I'd be done with the show. I'd go out and I'd have like a huge sushi dinner and dessert. And then I would just get back on my stuff. And by Wednesday, my body would be ready to peak again. I'd have to, start throwing more carbs in it. That was just like an ongoing, cycle. And every week I was able to add more food to just my regular daily regimen, even when I was coming down off of that huge repeat after the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm in love with reverse dieting. It's just like it's such a magical thing.
It's fascinating. It changes the client's life if they can do it and stick to it. And one thing I'm huge on is, I in particular have had a decent amount of clients who have competed on a very small local level that probably maybe need to lose 10 or 15 more pounds before they actually were very competitive in a class, to be quite honest. But these might be people who had like 60-pound weight losses, and they were like this far from making the top 5. So pretty decent. Those clients just have to stay in such a closer stage weight position than some of my people who actually did get lean enough for the stage. So reverse dieting and your body fat can be much different for each person, and their ability to put on muscle, also depending on how lean they were before they hit the stage versus, if they weren't lean enough, we need to really keep the weight gain tight to maybe 10 pounds post show and nothing more than that.
Right. Well, and because you want it to be a good 10 pounds. That's what they call it, a good 10 pounds. But I'm telling you, if you gain 10 pounds in a month, it's not a good 10 pounds.
Yeah. I tell people this all the time. You can lose weight and look good, or you can lose weight and look bad. And you can gain weight and look good, and you can gain weight and look bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like one bad day is not going to break you, just like one good day isn't going to make you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's all an experience. Everybody's got a little bit different of a journey, but I do like that we touched on like making sure that like the reverse diet is important, because we want to get you to a good place so that your body reacts well when you jump back into prep. That's what's going to make you a champion the next day.
It absolutely will.
Practicing what you learn in prep, outside of prep, or, practicing what you learned in off season in your prep it's huge.
If you don't reverse, it may only be 4 or 5 weeks of not dieting, but that can almost equal, when your met rate's that slow, that could equal like 12 or 15 weeks of not dieting.
Yeah.
And it can come around and bite you quick.
And I remember for me, like, because I've always been good about reverse dieting, especially the last couple of years. So I can basically eat whatever I want, which is wonderful. And I want that for everyone. I'm in prep, it's a little bit different, but in my off season, I still track my macros and stuff, but I have like those days where I don't have to even open up the damn log because I'm good to go. Which that's freeing. And I worked for that, Yeah. But, I noticed that when I'm in prep for so long, my body still always wants to go that one direction. So like, it's just wants to burn. And
Yeah.
in order to not mess up your metabolism and not, botch your adrenals and drain your body physically and mentally, reversing is, even when your body still wants to lose weight, reversing is the best thing to get that to get that to a happy place where what you're putting in is equaling what you're putting out, and you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's even better for your metabolism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I for me, especially because I was just losing weight. I couldn't eat enough food. So me reversing and getting to that certain point where my body was balanced was super, super important for me to do, like, ASAP.
Yeah.
And then it took me about, I would say, like 3 months almost, like a prep amount of time.
Yeah.
For my body to go to that one direction where it wanted to build instead of burn.
Definitely.
It was like turning the wheel.
Good question for you. I think I know the answer, but what's the hardest part of all of this for you?
Like competing or dieting, or what
Yeah,
aspect?
competing, dieting, anything.
Hardest part for me, probably trying to keep my coach life separate from my competitor life.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's because I always, I think, on a different level, than a lot of people do, that I never, even if I made the excuse, I would make up for it a couple hours later.
Oh, yeah.
So it was
I've
like,
gotten a few of those texts from you in the past.
yeah. And then it's just, and I think I always just wanted to make sure that I was giving 100%. I didn't want to leave one day not fulfilled. So so then I have my clients, and as we were talking before, you have to love your clients to a certain degree. That's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you want them to succeed, you want them to be healthy, and you want them to believe in you, you have to. That's just how it is. And for me, it's really hard to, and I'm getting a lot better at it. And I hope they all see this. I'm getting much better at it, separating the Bikini Olympian IFBB Bikini Pro from the coach, because sometimes my competitive side will rub off into my coaching, and that the girls call tough love.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure that I'm not pushing any buttons that shouldn't be pushed. I want to give them just the amount that they need, because I love them and I want them to succeed. So, that's got to be the hardest part for me, to be honest with you.
That's why you're such a good coach, though. And that's why, I can definitely see that in you. And we're very similar in that regard on how we care about our people. And,
I agree.
It really makes a difference.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, I still believe that you taught me all I know about being a good coach.
Well, you have done a phenomenal job. So that's a pleasure to hear. But I think a lot of that's just from you being just an incredible, driven person, because people don't realize it is work to coach. And I know so many people that want to coach, and I feel like they see what maybe we're doing, and they're like, that's got to be easy, because they've seen, they never got to see the journey to us coaching. And,
right.
I've lost people that I truly love. And man, those are some hard days where I have thought about just packing it up. And I'm like, you know what? There's so many other people that love me so much. And,
they need you.
Yes. And, there's, I told my wife this the other day. I said, Memorial Day, not many people were emailing me because of the holiday. And it felt very weird to me. I said, I'm really struggling with no one emailing me today, because I just don't feel needed. And I said, my identity crisis is me having a full inbox makes me feel important and good.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. So I remember we kind of touched on this a little bit before, and we, this is where the wine started kicking in.
Yes.
But no, I think that honestly, you and I both know that our clients could go anywhere with anyone, but they chose us. You know what I mean? So it is important to have that bond with your clients. That's just it. So we are honored to have the people that we have representing us. So
Yeah,
we just want to make sure that they feel good and they're doing well, and and they want to represent us in the light that we want to represent them too. You know what I
absolutely.
mean? And the same like goes for you and I. You are a reflection of the people you surround yourself with. So, and vice versa. So I'm very happy to, still be a part of your life and that, see the
Oh,
line.
absolutely. Yeah. Beyond just doing these podcasts together, I just enjoy our time we get to spend together and just catching up, which is great. So
I agree. Um, and then what else do we want to talk about? Did we miss anything that we tried to talk about the last time we were on?
I don't think so right offhand. Um, I know the end of our podcast was great and we only caught the first 30 minutes. And you know what was great? I had a company basically reformat that video for us. And they were like, we were able to recover the first 30 minutes. I'm like, well, that's perfect. So it
Yeah.
worked out well. So kudos to them. They did it for
Yeah.
like $50. I was like,
My
that's,
goodness.
yeah,
They had to dig though, I'm telling you, because that was sketchy.
that was.
I was like, darn it, we're not going to get that back, are we? But we had a great time. So
We did have a good time and the weather was great. And I didn't
yeah, I don't have
realize
a bikini on today.
I didn't realize you liked lizards, and there was one right next to you, and I didn't
Yeah.
see anything. So I was like, if she sees this, she might freak out, and we're gonna have to start the whole thing over again.
No, it's so funny because I literally have a tattoo of a lizard on my foot. You just didn't see it.
That is so funny.
Yeah, I grew up like with tons and tons and tons of reptiles, more than like the normal child should have grown up with.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah,
Your
I
parents must have loved you if they let you do that, because a lot of parents aren't on board with reptiles by any means.
it was definitely my dad, and I was an only child. So I think that's where that came from. They were like, we got to give her something to do. Let's let her chase lizards around the house. And I did. And I played with Barbies until like yesterday. So, but no, it's actually being an only child. I think that's probably why I am who I am. I've been able to, really grow into my own person. Like I said, like we own our own businesses. Like that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy, right?
It's so crazy. So crazy. And I'm not even 30 years old. So it's like, I think that's an accomplishment and a half. So,
Yeah.
but I think that everything that, from my lizards to, my experiences in competing and moving around and stuff like that, it led me to right where I wanted to be. So,
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So another thing that we could actually highlight quick before we jump off, it's like my most favorite thing in the whole entire world because some people don't understand it yet. Moderation.
Yeah.
Of like cheat days and things like that, and especially when it comes to reversing, I think that's like the most important thing. So people will see me all the time eating donuts, and they'll be like, "You don't eat those. Like, why are you being fake? Why how can you eat those and look the way you do?" And what people don't understand is I don't eat all 6 of the donuts.
Right.
I'll try like a piece of each one because I practice my discipline all the time, and that's how I do it. I put myself in those pressured situations, and I learn from them. So me having a bite of each of the donuts so I can experience the flavors, and then I move on. And then my next meal is my chicken and my sweet potato.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that like being able to teach your clients moderation is huge and like a really, really big accomplishment. But you can only guide them to do those types of things. They have to be able to do that for themselves.
I like that you say moderation, because a lot of people online say balance, and no one has the complete definition of what that is. And I think moderate's easier to grasp for people.
Yeah.
And I find a lot of people trying to find balance that find this really slippery slope, and they just start justifying every bad decision they make to like, well, I want to bulk right now. And it's like, well, you might not want to bulk that much. Or on the other end, they just don't eat enough.
Right.
And I've seen that too for balance. Or what's really bad is when you see someone have a crazy weekend and then they're, really crash dieting during the week. And that's just like, that works for a couple weeks and then it ends up being just a metabolic disaster. You're just
Right.
not having enough days to stimulate your metabolism to get faster. And that's really difficult to see people go through. And moderation is absolutely, key for people if they
Yeah.
want to survive in this business, for sure.
Right. Right. And I know, like for people that are trying to learn how to, just kind of harmonize everything, just how to make everything kind of work together.
Hmm.
Um, like logging and honest logging is going to help you understand the calories and the macros of things that you're eating.
Yeah.
So like for me, like I'm honest, like when I, for example, Five Daughters donuts, you guys, like everybody sees me eating them all the time. So I've actually learned to log them, and you actually do get a feel for like what a certain food has in it for protein, carbs, and fats. Like if you have been flexible dieting for a long time, you could tell whether you're undershooting or overshooting by the end of the day about like with how full you are, how much water you're holding, and things like that. You can kind of tell whether you kind of like, oh, maybe I undershot a little bit. I should add a little bit more, and then I know for next time. So into your log.
Yeah.
In regards to actually getting the number right for what you're eating, that's not specific, because my log doesn't, MyFitnessPal doesn't have Five Daughters donuts in it.
Right.
So you've got to, so what I do is I find a cronut because it's a 100-layer donut. And because these are like specialty gourmet donuts, they've got sugar around the outside. They usually have some stuff in the middle and they got some fun stuff on top. So I'll log 1.5 cronuts, which is about, I think it was like 56 carbs, like 20 grams of fat or something like that, and then just a couple grams of protein. And for me, that felt justified. You know what I mean? Because it felt like it was a little much, but it probably wasn't much at all because that was a Five Daughters donut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you have to think about it.
Definitely.
There's tons of butter in there. There's tons of oil in there, whatever it is. And then tons of sugar and stuff. There's extra sugar inside, outside, and around it, So it's, I think that being like honest with yourself when you're logging that stuff so you can get used to it is how you actually find moderation in your diet, like outside of like prep and like when you're doing your reverse.
Mine was very similar just with sushi as an instance. I would track, maybe some heavier rolls that I knew had, more toppings than what I was actually eating. And that was just a sacrifice I made to have it. And then, when you go to quote unquote, I like to call it intelligent eating versus intuitive eating, because still no one can tell me what intuitive eating is. That makes a huge difference. And, just learning how my body reacted to that stuff makes a major difference. So,
yeah. Yeah. And like I said, and if you've been flexible dieting for a while, years, then you can kind of know whether you kind of like cheated yourself on a number or a bite here or there, especially by the time you get to the bottom of the day and you feel some sort of way,
Yeah, definitely.
So like I think that like my 1.5 cronuts is justified for my 1 Five Daughters donut.
There you go.
Winning. And, and the same, I'm going to use donuts again. Just for, everybody listening, the honest logging makes a huge difference also in your mentality too, when you go to eat without using your log. If you feel there's no guilt and that, if you've eaten a donut that day, then everything else, you should eat a little bit cleaner or whatever it is. If it's a refeed day, still, you can keep it cleaner or you can keep it dirty, whatever you want, but you have an idea of what's going into your body.
Right.
You know what I mean? So one of my clients went out to Vegas last weekend. She goes, how do I log a pink box donut? And I said, and I broke it down for her. I said, well, you have to think about it. I said, it's kind of like a regular donut, but then like if there's something on the inside, maybe you should log like 2 tablespoons of pudding with a regular donut. So say you log a Dunkin' Donut, 2 tablespoons of pudding, and then, all right, so there's like a couple decorations on top with a little bit of extra icing. All right, so log 2 tablespoons of just regular frosting from a can.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like your pink box donut right there. And that's what honest logging is all about too.
you can build that in some of your apps, which is really helpful as well.
Yeah.
And I always have it there.
Do you use MyFitnessPal?
I use my macros typically. That
Okay.
one's always been good for me, but many of my clients use MyFitnessPal.
Okay. Yeah, I've used MyFitnessPal for years now, ever since I started with you, I think. So it's
Yeah,
always
I
been like my
remember
trusty
back
right hand.
then I was all MyFitnessPal for the most part.
Yeah, and they've stepped their game up too. So I mean, I'm gonna stay with them.
I still remember you were a pad of paper and a pen for the first couple months.
Oh yeah, I still have all that stuff.
Samsel style there.
Yeah, I still have like all of that stuff, all of it.
I
It's so
kind of
funny.
love seeing that because that usually tells you something about somebody. That I have a really type A client that's just going to nail everything, ask any question they could possibly think of, and they
Yeah,
usually won't mess things up.
yeah, and well, and it's cool too because I know that like especially when you first start, when you're first doing the flexible dieting and you're first actually getting into bodybuilding, like you haven't stepped in a gym, like, or maybe you're in a gym, but you're not, you weren't really doing all the things that you're supposed to be doing in regards to diet and actually moving forward with building your body. So it's cool to see like that my evolution from like what my macros were to what they are now.
Yeah.
And, and what I can handle outside, like with the freedom that I have now. And the muscle mass I have now. I mean, it's not much more, but it's significant in the fact that I'm a natural athlete. So, and it's been 6.5 years. So this is the farthest I've got. Goodness gracious. And I also have small wrists. So that's hard to build too. But anyway.
You're very much like me.
Yeah, like I can't pick anything up. And then my limbs are long. It's a process, man. But so it's crazy because I remember I think my macros like starting because I didn't have a lot of muscle mass, so I couldn't really eat a lot. I wasn't burning as much, obviously. So I think my macros were like 125, 85, 35 or something like that, like the lowest that they got. And then we started like bringing them up going into the shows,
I want to say around peak weeks, we hit around 175 to 190. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
And then
like double, I would say.
Got higher after that, after more shows.
Yeah, it was almost like a kick.
Yes.
So, but it was cool to watch that, watch my body come down into that and then watch it just like zoom out of it because I did my best to, do my proper reverse dieting and things like that,
Yeah.
I think and as you work your way into getting someplace that you find more favorable, it is a process and you're going to make mistakes and things like that, but you've got to also be able to trust that you can jump right back in the process and it will work for you if you work for it.
Absolutely. That's a great way of saying it.
Yeah. Yeah,
not
for
letting
sure.
perfect be the enemy of good.
Yeah. So it's just, that's why, like, I love reverse dieting. Like, I will stand next to that before I stand next to prep. Because I dieted down to the Olympia last year. Took me 7 weeks and I was too skinny. So.
Right.
Maybe I should have only dieted for 4. I don't know. But yeah, like the reverse dieting, it will literally make or break you. So.
It's definitely huge for progress. It's one of the most important things an athlete can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And especially like you don't have to do flexible dieting to do that either.
Right.
But the variety definitely helps.
It definitely does.
But I think that's all for me. I think I'm reverse dieted out.
Yeah. I think we explained that pretty well and how important it is.
Yeah. Well, I hope people have questions too. Like we would love to answer questions about the reverse dieting.
Yeah.
About like, hard bodies and soft bodies and, just kind of like what works and what doesn't. We can only answer those to the best of our abilities because we're not the ones, behind the table. We just know how to bring a body into a show and just kind of give it the charisma and pop that it needs. And, but reverse dieting, we pretty much got down pat.
Yeah. I think we'll definitely pause here because I think we're almost out of time, but then we'll definitely start a new podcast probably next week, right? I think
absolutely.
awesome. we'll try to do these once a week. And if people can comment below, that will be awesome. I think we'll get more engagement now that our lips should line up and everything should work well on this one.
Yeah. And I wasn't moving my hands so much this time, but I mean, I could fit it all in now if you need me to.
Once we're in person together, I'm sure it'll look like we're conducting in an orchestra.
And filling our glasses to the brims too.
Yes, definitely.
But
I am ahead of you this round, but you filled your glass way higher than mine.
Way higher. But so I think that it's a good idea to gather some insight from everybody else, questions and topics.
That sounds great. Well, we will see you guys all next week, and thanks for joining us.
Bye.